Hello and welcome. My name is Nate Cap, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. This is my Oculus Part 2 presentation with the subtitle The Sacred Cone. And this is going to be my follow up to my Oculus 1 presentation that I gave at the Funnel 3 conference. And that being said, thank you to Chris Jansen and the whole Funnel team for inviting me back. It's a real honor to be here. And this is going to be a very, very jam packed presentation. It's going to be a very short, condensed presentation because of time restraints. So you really, just like you see here with this iceberg, the little tip that is coming out of the top of the water, that is akin to what you're going to receive here today, but a very important piece. The rest of the topic is waiting for you down in the shadows to do your own work, to really see for yourself when you go into the underworld. That's where you're going to really understand what is being said here today and really see the criticalness of what you're hearing here today. Okay. So this is a refinement process. It's about becoming conscious of what already is, what has already taken place, and what is currently taking place here today, here in the now. And so anybody who has studied my work knows that I speak a lot about symbolism. I talk about the language of symbolism. It is a lost language, but it is a very universal language. And it probably is the most important language that anybody could ever learn. But people are they have been programmed to be apathetic towards this language, not knowing that they actually use the language of symbolism every day in their words because words are made of symbols, but letters are symbols. But I just want people to understand that I am going to use a lot of symbolism, and I really, really just strongly want to emphasize and hopefully inspire this particular community that is listening to this, that this is one of the most important things that anybody could ever learn, the language of symbolism, next to natural law. Natural law should come first, but symbolism is really what helps us develop our understanding of natural law. And so that's what I'm hoping to show here today, or that's what I'm going to show, but I'm hoping that people really pick up on that as I move through this information. But the other language that people know my work by is green language. And this is a frequency of the center. So green is the color that is in the middle of the visible spectrum of color. And so it's a frequency that's right at the center. So when you're listening phonetically to words that you're using or that are coming into you, you're listening with the ear of your heart. It's literally the word ear is literally in the middle of the word heart. And what you're doing when you're listening with your heart is you're listening with intelligence. That's why it's heart-based intelligence, this language is, because it's about listening to what is encoded or hidden within the words that we use. And it also helps us with the limitation of our language or languages. And so that is what green language is here to do, is it's here to make us conscious of the words that we use phonetically and, to see the wordplay, the puns, but with a structure, with rules or principles, the syntax. So this is a very, very important language to use, to learn and to use, so that way you can really start to see the hidden world, the occult world. And green language is an occult language. It is a symbolic language. And this is also about being able to see with the Oculus. So I just want to, remind everyone what the Oculus is, which is the eye, the one eye, the central eye Okay. So it's not just the eye of the heart, but it's the eye of the mind. It's central. And so this is what allows us to, just like the ear of the heart is what allows us to let light into the center. Well, that's exactly what the Oculus is. The Oculus allows light in, but it is the eye that is able to see and, more importantly, understand the occult. So we use the Oculus to be able to see the unseen. Now, when we unfold the Oculus, the circled dot symbol, or yeah, when we unfold it into an advanced form, it becomes the cone. And so, right in the word cone, I've said this before, but I really just want to stress this word with green language, which is that the C is the vision. Okay, so we see the one, or we see with one, because it's about seeing with the eye. And that's about seeing with the heart. Okay, so it's heart-based intelligence. So I just want to make that connection so people are prepared to hear what they're going to hear throughout the rest of this presentation. Now, what's going to be put on the table today is we're going to talk about the circled dot symbol, which I kind of just did. We're going to talk about the sacred cone and spiral symbols. We're going to talk about the celestial and terrestrial, being the archetypal circle and square. We're going to talk about the pyramidal form, fetishism, very important topic, centralized control, Osiris, truth, frequency, conspire, inspiration, and the great work. So it's a very, very important jam-packed presentation. Really hope you guys are ready with your notepads, because there is a lot to cover here. Now, starting with the circled dot, it's very important because, again, this is the Oculus, the eye, when we really understand what we're dealing with here, because this is what gives us vision. This is what gives us clarity, is this symbol, when we know how to exhaust the symbol, how to use the symbol properly. And so we have to remember, just as a refresher, the circle represents free will. That is the random component of our reality, and the fixed, determined component or element is natural law. Okay, so the goal is to align ourselves to natural law, and that means that it is something that takes time and diligence, and it's an unfoldment or a refoldment, however you want to look at that. But as we start to understand that we have a free will choice where we can align to the truth or natural law, then the symbol known as the sacred spiral is a perfect conjoining symbol to this circled dot to help us understand this unfoldment of the self, where we go on a spiral like journey to the centrally defined point of life, the purpose, the meaning. And so we're going from a void of darkness and chaos of the circle, and not understanding free will, not understanding that the whole point of free will is to align ourselves to what is actually good, and then taking the journey, the unfolding journey, because we don't just beamline to the truth, it unfolds. And so that is why these two symbols are very important together. Now, the whole presentation is all about refinement. So this is a two-dimensional understanding of these symbols, and we are going to move into the three-dimensional. But before we get into that, we have to understand what comes first, the circle or the dot. Well, without the point, the circle it has no definition. So symbolically, it's undefinable, it's infinite, it's ineffable. That means it's beyond words. symbolically. Okay. So the circle is on its own is symbolic of the all encompassing, all present, everywhere, all at once, having no beginning and no end. So once we understand that the point is what comes first, because the point is fixed, you have to have a starting point. So the point comes first because there has to be meaning, there has to be purpose, there has to be definition, there has to be a principle. But you can't just have only a point either, because there's nothing to define the point. So, starting with the starting point, we use a very ancient symbol and tool known as the compass. So, the compass is what draws out from the point to the circle. So, from the center outward to, the boundaries of reality. And therefore, the compass represents the point and the circle. It is the extender of the point. This is what allows us to have an unfoldment. So the compass allows the unfoldment from the point. And this means that the compass starts from the immovable fixed point outward. So it starts from law and then works its way out. Now, this is about understanding that the point is the principle. So it is a first thing. This is where we start first. And so this is at the heart of everything. It's at the heart of the circle. It's the aspect of reality that grounds everything. It grounds the circle. The point grounds the circle. So the circle depends on the point. All life depends on the point, or the law, the principle, which is order. And as some of us know, and all of us know this deep down, we start out in an outward direction. Okay, in the material minded direction, where that's the most dominant thing. And this is the exoteric. Okay, so this is something that's been going on for a very long time, but it is especially in the modern world. And this is where we just, we don't really understand or know anything about natural law or truth or the self, because we are in a state, not only a state, a condition of apathy and ignorance, but also we are in a profane state. And this means that we just, when we're starting out this way, we don't have any regard for the sacred, which is natural law, truth, and the self. At least not yet. Okay. Hopefully, we do eventually, soon. And, once we reach this outer ring, so to speak, this area, this wall, this condition of what you could call as rock bottom, this is where we're essentially met with a critical choice. Are we going to stay in this aimless hedonism and apathy and ignorance and darkness? Or are we going to face ourselves and stop lying to ourselves and be honest and actually align to the laws of nature? Are we going to actually be moral? Because if that's what we do, then that's what produces freedom. Freedom is the result of changing the direction from the circle to the point. And so that is about learning that which is at the center internal. That is the sacred. And, once we've reached a point of clarity, when we reached a great deal of our magnum opus, our great work, then we can bring that point of clarity out to others where we can outcast the wisdom, where we can cast out from the point to the circle, which is where people are, collectively at, who are waiting to learn, people who are actually hungry to learn, people who, might be on the verge of, needing help to raise out of that ring of fire or that ring of chaos and darkness. So being in the center is about alignment to natural law. And that means being initiated. Okay. So this means that the true great work starts when that light is brought out to others, when it's casted out, when it's broadcasted, which is exactly what we're doing here in this conference or all these conferences where we're talking about natural law. We're broadcasting what we've learned, what we've been initiated into, and have come to an understanding. Now we're casting out, we're broadcasting wisdom outward from the point to speak from the principle. So now we are going to transition from the two-dimensional circled dot to now the three-dimensional circled dot. So I'd like to raise a good point, a very important point, a very highlighted point. So this centrally defined point symbolically raises in order to help us understand the highest. So it's not just the point at the center, it's the highest of that point. So the three-dimensional cone advances from the pure form of the circled dot. And so what that does, that's very, very important, is that you can't just have 2 points. You have to understand that the point now turns into a pole. It creates a pole or fashions a pole. And so this becomes polar. It gives it depth. It gives it gravity. It gives it a up-down direction. It gives it a low to high, or a base to elevated, or you could even say south to north when you really understand the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine in correspondence to the earth, the sacred feminine being associated with the south and the sacred masculine being associated with the north. This is a spiritual symbol to help us understand ourselves very deeply. And so this is a complex form, but it's a very, very important complex form because it teaches us responsibility, because this is dealing with the Holy Trinity. So the three that are the one. This is one of the most important things that anybody could ever learn, because, something that I've talked about in my work plenty of times is that in order to understand, I really want people to listen to this very carefully. In order to understand the second birth, which is a spiritual birth, something that you get over time, especially when you get to be older, your physical birth is the familial physical trinity. And so your father is a gift giver. He is a deliverer of the gift to your mother. Your mother is the receiver of that gift, the processor of that gift, the shaper of that gift. And from the waters where she is holding that gift, eventually that gift comes out onto land. That is your life. Your life is that gift. Your experience is that gift. And so then as you grow, your mother and your father help you or are supposed to help you grow up from a child to an adult. And when you become an adult, this is where you start to come in contact with your spiritual development. And that is about responsibility. And so the way that we can understand this a lot further is that we start with this image of the Sacred Father with the point that is dividing in two. So this is the highest, the lightest, and the sharpest. That's the Sacred Father. And the mother is the lowest, the deepest, the darkest, and also the heaviest. She adds gravity. She's mysterious. And then right at the center of the mother is the germ or the seed, the point, the sacred child, the potentiality. So this is the potential in all of us that we have the ability to marry our masculine and feminine in order for that child, that inner child, to be raised into an adult. And so this is about understanding that that seed has the potential to be raised if the Sacred Mother has the proper nutrients in her soil. So I'm speaking symbolic, of course, so think of it as a garden. So the soil needs to be rich. The soil needs to have water. So the Sacred Father is also the light that needs to shine down on that seed in order for everything to work, properly for that seed to grow. And that really is knowledge and, courage and willpower that we all have to discover in ourselves. We have to generate this power in ourselves. And therefore, we have to go on a journey. We have to spiral, which means that there is a generator of care that is all about finding the sacred feminine, the Sacred Mother, to ignite the spirit that is hiding or that is hidden within the occult, the hidden realm. This is the darkest part of the self that is waiting for you to be responsible enough to face your shadows, your traumas, your going deeply into the Sacred Mother, deep into the ground, so to speak, deep into the waters, the underworld. This is what's going to raise you up, the inner spiritual child in you to be raised up into from a dull child into a sharp, adult, where the mother and the father are united as one cone. So this is about understanding that we are little children spiritually. Most of us are little children spiritually. We're just physical adults, but not spiritual adults. We're not raised, because an adult is someone who is grown up, because it takes work to be a true adult. It takes responsibility to go on this spiraling journey to discover reality and truth. And so this symbol helps us understand this science of the self. And it's about, putting a sharp image in your face so you have something to reflect into yourself. So you have something to understand about yourself internally. And this Holy Trinity has nothing to do with any dogma. It's not dogmatic. It's something that you can discover for yourself. It's universal. It goes beyond all of these religions that might have this science embedded into their doctrines, but this is a very powerful symbol that is in the fabric of our reality that we have to discover. Now, if that seed does not grow, if it does not develop into a sharp adult, guess what? It stays in darkness, it stays ignorant, it stays dormant, it does not grow. It stays flat. It stays in a puddle of mud, in the, murky, apathy that the condition that most of us are in this world, because people don't care. And so this is a spire ritual of growing up to become an adult, to become sharp. And so we have to move upward. So that, it's right in the word. So we have to learn the upward and also learn the downward. So it's really, really important to understand that. Now, to really further this understanding, we have to learn not only the celestial and terrestrial bases. Okay, these very elementary archetypal shapes. We have to understand why these shapes go together, why they complement each other. And so, because we are earthlings, we are terrestrial beings, which means we are more, especially because we're more material minded, we're associated with the terrestrial, but we have to learn the celestial in order to really see how they combine together. And so we use the terrestrial in order to learn the celestial, because the celestial is what holds all the lights of the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the planets. And therefore, this is how we learn how to, plant, when to plant and when to harvest. And also, it's a spiritual development, because remember that the terrestrial is dealing with directions. And so we're dealing with directions and also the seasons. So the 4 seasons goes with the four sides of the square, and the circle, we have to remember it is 360 degrees. This is very critical because 360 degrees is also the square. So how did I get 360 degrees in a square? Well, we have to remember that the circle, the celestial, is infinite. The square is what we as terrestrial beings discover is the degrees of a circle, because we find the right angles in order to build a square, which are 90 degrees each. So you have 4 times 90, that's 360 degrees. So the celestial on the left, symbolized by the circle, this represents the heavens, which is above and beyond the terrestrial or the earth. But it's also at the center. So 360 degrees is not just at the center, it's all around. And so this is about understanding, look at the Vitruvian Man, that'll tell you what this is all about. But it represents spirituality and eternity, as in the higher or the central prospect. It represents the infinite, as in the all that is. It represents it represents perfection, because the circle truly is the perfect shape, symbolically. Symbolically, nothing can be more perfect than the circle. So it's like I said, it's eternal and divine. It's everything, everywhere, all at once. It's ineffable. It's beyond words. It's unbounded. It's boundless. Nothing is defined. So even though the celestial has things in it like stars and planets, it's not defined by those things. It's immeasurable. It's boundless. It's the boundless realm of spirit. Now, the terrestrial on the right side is symbolically represented by the square, which is Earth. So the terrestrial is materiality. It is the lower material world. It is matter. And like I was talking about earlier with the circle at the bottom of the cone, that's mother. So in the terrestrial, the square is mother, the base, the matter. Mother is matter. So it's finite, which means physical limitations, and that means also definition. It has form, and therefore it's made of 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. And it's also made of the 4 directions, being north, south, east, and west. All directions that orient the mind. It helps us navigate our world. It helps us understand how to orient and find balance and equilibrium. And it also helps us, build actual structures in our world. So therefore, it's about stability. And if the structure is well, then it can be stable in the element. And spiritually, that's about finding the equilibrium. It's about expressing equilibrium. It is that's how we create balance and harmony in the world. And therefore, it's bounded. It's not something that is perfect. It's definable. It's measurable. It has sides. It has angles. It has sharpness. And so, celestially, we start with the point and we work our way out. It unfolds. So remember, celestially, we start with the point and the circle comes next. But terrestrially, we start with the square, the material, and we work our way in to the point at the center. And the way that we do that is we take 2 diagonal lines, 2 straight diagonal lines that cross each other that create an X, and that X right at the center of the X is the point. So this is what draws your attention to the point, to and from the point. And that is why these 2 bases, these 2, archetypal shapes are so important when it comes to the center of them. Think of it as a bird's eye view, okay? And think of the cone, think of the pyramid. I'm going to get into that, but just remember that first things is about, the point, the singularity, the seed at the center. And so from, when we're looking at the celestial, we have to think of the point emanating or expanding the infiniteness of the celestial, which is that is what is represented by this circle. Then comes the manifested material, being the symbolized by the square. And the square is what helps us remember or even rediscover the point at the center, in the middle of material, in the middle of the 4 elements: earth, water, air, and fire. And so, what is the 5th point? The 5th point is spirit, ether. It's right at the center. And this is, if not the deepest truth about sacred geometry, because it stores our memory of who we really are. And it's something that we, each have the ability to remember about ourselves. It is our responsibility to remember this, to discover this, especially when we get in this condition, or even before we get in this condition of apathy and slavery. We have to understand that we are just responsible for discovering this at any time, no matter what condition we're in. We have to understand this. It's that important. And so this science is something that is stored within the 5 epigomenal days, known as the 5 epigomenal days. And this is something that can be found in the ancient Egyptian solar mythos. These 5 epigomenal days are the 5 extra days of a 365-day year. So the ancient priest class of that time, I would say well over 100,000 years ago, they understood that the circle was 360 degrees, and therefore they had to make up for the 5 extra days, which in their brilliance of that time, they stored those 5 extra days into the 5 siblings, being Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys, in that order. And of course, Osiris right at the center, the X. This is about understanding spirit at the center of the circle, and the 4 seasons, the 4 elements that surround. And so this was stored in the 5 epigomenal days because, they needed to make 365 days into 360 degrees, or a full cycle, or a full circle. And so that's how they fit the 5 extra days into a full cycle or full circle. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The 5 epigomenal days is also known as the days out of time, or the 5 holy days. Okay, so this is very important to the rest of what I'm going to talk about. Now, we have to understand that the cone and the circle and the dot, and the square and the dot, they raise from a 2-dimensional form into now a 3-dimensional form. So this is what we have to understand from the celestial, how the celestial is different from the terrestrial in form. Okay, but it's saying the same science, only one is how we understand this science from the terrestrial. And so it is very important, because this is how we're going to really learn what these pyramids are trying to tell us. And the cone, when the point is raised, it's about going from a 2-dimensional to a 3-dimensional, which means manifestation, going into sharpness, from dullness to sharpness. And the pyramid on the right, this is Osiris in a pure form, actually, because the pyramid represents the 5th point raised, which is at the center. And so that is Osiris. That is fire in the middle. Pyramid means fire in the middle. That means the spirit is raised by fire, the element of fire. And so when that spirit is raised, that raises the Benben. The Benben is Osiris in the pure form, in the 5. And it's really important to pay attention to these directions as well. But I just want people to understand, this is how we learn how to connect to the cosmos, from the terrestrial to the celestial. Because as we raise, we're raising from the terrestrial into the celestial. And so it's all geometry. It's all sacred geometry. And geometry, if you know the etymology, it means the earthly measurement. And that's exactly what it is. We are not just measuring the physical world, we're actually sacredly measuring the internal occult world. Okay. So it's really important to understand these three forms, these three shapes side by side: the cone, the triangle, and the pyramid. They all have a triangular essence, and they all are spires or have spires. Because remember, a spire is about understanding that there is a base, and from the base tapers into a point at the top. And that is about having structure from the ground up, and reaching the heavens. The terrestrial is reaching the celestial. But this is, when we're looking at these forms, they appear just geometric in the physical way, where it's like, okay, these are just geometric forms. But it's about understanding them at the center, and understanding that what's missing is what is central in all of these forms. And so you can use your imagination and see for yourself. Or, obviously what I've been showing you this whole presentation shows you what's right at the center. So this is about understanding the Oculus or the heart. So this, what is missing though, is something that we can understand a lot further in this subject of fetishism. And this is a topic that I wish I could, go a lot further into in this presentation, but it is something being talked about in the cubbyhole. This has nothing to do with modern fetishism in the sense of, sexual desires or base desires. So in ancient fetishism, this refers to a stage in the development of human religious thought in which natural objects, amulets, charms, or symbolic items are regarded as imbued with real spiritual or magical power. This has everything to do with understanding animism in its purest form. And so this is about acting as tangible means. The magical power is about acting as tangible means by which humans engage, influence, or communicate with superhuman forces, aka, weather, earthquakes, any type of force that human beings cannot make. So in ancient fetishism, people experienced the world as unstable and incomplete. Things went wrong for reasons they could not see or control, which is still going on. Illness, crop failure, darkness, death. And so I wish I could explain all of these in this presentation, but darkness, I think, is one of the most important parts of understanding fetishism, because when we understand that the sun is something that gives us a sense of absence, it is a sense of abandonment, it is a primal fear. Darkness is a primal fear, so is abandonment. So when the sun is leaving, when the sun, goes from the north to the south at the time of, late fall, early winter, down in the winter solstice, the sun is leaving. The sun, days get darker, they get colder, nutrients becomes sparse. And therefore, in order to deal with that, people, especially in the ancient world, they had a stored up power that they gave to the tokens or charms, or things like claws or bones or stones or skin, these types of things that were a mental influence of faith in order to fill in for what was missing. And therefore, something important is missing or out of balance, like the sun. And that absence which is what creates darkness, is why things are off. So felt absence creates belief and faith and even hope. And so this in its purest form is how we in our earlier stages of religion, hundreds of thousands of years ago, this is how we were able to deal with the absence of what is good, what protects us. So this is how we understand misfortune and also fortune and protection. So that's why amulets, charms, tokens, talismans are forms of protection for things that are absent. And so this becomes later corrupted when religion really starts to, develop into what it has become in the modern world, especially, but, really in the past 40,000 years or so, we start to see how this becomes corrupt because even though a Messiah, for instance, could be something that is good in its early stage as a form of protection while, the sun is gone, you have something to, give you protection in a spiritual way. Well, that can become materialized and literalized or euhemerized. And also, this is what allows for there to be manipulation, aka socialism, aka government. And so that's what it's become. So government stands in for things that are off. That's what it does. And so government really has become the fetish. So has the solar messiahs in their corrupt form. So now it's really important to understand that the way to really, really make sense of what has stood in for us as a human species in the modern world is that mind control has rapidly increased. And so when we look at the mind control pyramid system, we understand that the way that this control system actually works, this is the R complex control system, it is working because it is keeping the mind going in all different directions. So that's why news, the acronym of news is north, east, west, and south. And so we all know, everyone knows. If you don't know, there's something really wrong with you. But news is a government-run propaganda machine. Okay? That's what it is. Everyone should know that by now. But news is what is used as a medium by the media. So the media, the word media comes from medium, which means middle or center. So it's centralized power by the R complex few at the top, the dominators that have all the information of how this control structure works. These are the dark occultists, the sorcerers, the elite, and they have this inverted pyramid power structure where they're directing the mind in all different directions in order to control the middle or the center. So just think about the CIA. Just think about where all the war is taking place in the world. The Middle East. So it's about controlling the middle. And so if we don't learn this form, then we're not going to understand the middle. Now, the dominators, what they do is they send pressure from the top down. And this pressure is about playing God because it's the highest. They believe that they are the highest people. Okay? They believe that they have this divine right to rule. So this is about understanding the, exoteric corrupted kingship, where they really believe they have the right to rule over everyone else, where they make all the decisions on how things actually work in the world. And that those decisions go downward to the rest of the masses. And the energy of the serfs or slaves, the slave class at the bottom, the energy is what goes upward. It's a resource that goes upward to this pyramid, the apex of the pyramid of control, of mind control. And so the small elite is extracting energy and value from a large base, which is pretty much everyone in the whole world. And this is centralized authority, centralized power. And this is about understanding there is a knowledge differential. People don't have the knowledge of the center. They don't have the knowledge of the top. And that's because of ignorance and apathy. They keep people in the square at the bottom. That's apathy. That's ignorance. If you really want to know, you have to raise yourself. You have to find that responsibility, that care at the center and that heart-based frequency and raise that to your highest potential to really see what's going on in this world, to take back your centralized power, because these people are running everyone's mind, for the most part, everyone's mind in the world, regardless of whether you believe that or not. They're running it. And they're running it on fear. And they're running it mostly on the fact that people fear what they don't understand or know. So that means the knowledge. You have to learn the right knowledge. That's why natural law is so important. So surveillance and violence is what is required for this power structure to maintain quote unquote order. And so this is very, very critical to pay attention to. Also, because it's not just the news, you have to understand that through movies, through cinema, this is also part of the mind control. And I think anybody listening to this, most people, especially at this conference, knows that is definitely going on. But I don't have time to, go through all of this, but I just want people to pay attention to the word Oscar. This is a nickname for the Academy Award that is given to actors and directors and everybody that works on, these movies that come out of Hollywood. What I want people to pay attention to is that, the golden man. Esoterically, this means the solar perfected self. So this is all dealing with the solar cult, but it's about an alchemical process right at the center stage. The whole world is a stage. The four corners of the earth that this statue stands on. So look at, what's right on the website of the Oscar Awards is the unfoldment of the pyramid. And you have the dark to light next to that, as, trying to show, the representation of what this award means spiritually or esoterically. But of course, you're never going to see that or understand that when you're watching the awards with an exoteric mindset. You have to understand that they are speaking directly to your subconscious and telling you who is the best actor in the world. Okay. That's why people look up to them and idolize these actors, because they're winning the best actor award, and best actor means moral and aligned to natural law. But movies move the eye, that's the green language, through it, the heart. So it's right at the heart. They're moving your eye, your Oculus, and the heart at the same time. Okay? So what I really want people to pay attention to is the word Oscar. So Oscar, you have the OS. That's already a dead giveaway of Osiris, the phallus, the gold member. Okay, that's the statue, the Oscar. But go even further. If you take the C of Oscar Instead of a k sound, you have a s sound. So Osar, Osar, instead of Oscar, Osar. Well, that's exactly phonetically the name of Osiris in the ancient Cometian um, tradition. Because we have to understand that Osiris, the name Osiris, is a Greek word. It's a Greek name for Asar. And so, in symbolic terms, the missing phallus of the ancient Egyptian god Asar or Osiris functions as a symbol of responsibility, which is missing in this world. And this is understood as a vital principle ignited at the center of material existence. The spiritual quest to recover this missing part is the embodiment of Isis, the generative care. This is where we start to really understand what care is all about in this ritual of Isis, because she seeks to trace the fragmented pieces of the divine light, being Osiris, which is her brother or lover or husband, and restore the light to a pure, upright form. And so this means that, as you can see right in the line, the missing phallus is also Ma'at, which represents truth, justice, and that which is straight or correct. So that is responsibility. And so that's what I'm trying to restore. That's what I'm trying to inspire in people here today. So, truth versus perception. I'm going to fly through this because I got a lot more to say. So, the plane of truth is singular. Human perception must align with this plane in order to access higher frequencies and facilitate evolution and consciousness. So, as you can see, the truth is akin to the plane of truth is akin to the pole at the center, which is the axis. This is reality. Okay, this is the North Star, so to speak. Okay, and so what you're trying to do is your perception is not reality, but that is where you have the ability to align your oscillating wave frequency, your spiral frequency to that line, that plane of truth more frequently. So as you raise up in consciousness and become sharper, you go from a dullness to a sharpness up to a higher frequency. So that's another way that this spiral and the sacred spiral and sacred cone and pole can teach you about truth and perception from the base to the highest. Now, in the movie Live, Die, Repeat, or it was also referred to as Edge of Tomorrow, there is a very deep symbolic allegory that is basically explaining the spire ritual, if you're really paying attention to what it's saying. So each oscillating wave frequency is akin to a day that he awakens. And so you have the day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on of the oscillating wave frequency. And in Live, Die, Repeat contains the allegorical refinement of the spire ritual, as each day the oscillating wave, he restarts, he quote unquote restarts, aka awakens with deeper memory and a sharper understanding of what he needs to do in order to reach the Omega, which is the end. So, sorry, spoiler. But this image that you see on the left, all the way to the left, that is a hologram of the Omega. And so it's very conical, right? And that when he actually does reach the Omega, he goes through on the right the pyramid, the glass pyramid. That's very symbolic. So at the bottom of The center bottom of the glass pyramid is the omega in water. Okay, so he, obviously it's kind of got a dark twist to it, but also it is the spire ritual. And it's a great movie. I highly recommend it for a good spiritual study. So now the cone spire. This is really important because cone spire is when it's combined, it's conspire. So the word conspire means to breathe together in the same spirit. So symbolically, conspiracy means sharing one breath or intention together, often hidden. So, if it's truth and freedom that we want, we're all sharing the one breath. Really, we're all sharing the one breath, obviously, because spirit is infinite. But it's about, just understanding this word in its etymological form. Okay, we have to understand these words at their deepest etymological derivation to really see what it's really saying. So the word theorist is one who contemplates, observes, speculates, or studies. So the etymological definition of conspiracy theorist is one who contemplates shared breath, intention, and hidden connection. Now, I know that this word or phrase has, all kinds of ambiguity, but I'm here to clear that up. I'm trying to help us understand that there's a reason for that. So the term conspiracy theorist was deliberately obfuscated not only as a means for dismissing critical thinkers and questioners, but also as a way to steer the mind from learning the sacred cone spire. Because when you say conspire or conspiracy theorist with a negative tone, you're dismissing the cone. You're dismissing the spire. You're dismissing the breath, the spirit. And so, but the point is that once we realize this cone spire, it really puts everything into perspective of what's really going on and how these words are obfuscated and how they're, turned against us. So cone spire is also about understanding inspiration, the inspire at ion. So inspiration comes from the Latin verb inspirare, which means to breathe into, to infuse, excite, or animate. So when someone or something outside your everyday thinking gives your mind a jolt or a kick and helps you see things more clearly, it's a type of wake up call. So to be inspired is to encounter an idea or form that sets something in motion, not to copy it, but to develop it much further. It is the experience of being moved by something beyond oneself, awakening thought, feeling, or purpose. This often leads to clarity, creativity, or action that feels both meaningful and elevating. Inspiration draws the inner self upward toward a goal-like focused center where an emanating or emerging idea takes shape as a guiding aim, orienting the mind towards what matters most. So the inspire is like the tip top of a spiral cone, a continuously returning inward facing point, a kind of eternal bullseye. It is the target or end point, the goal. So, this is why I wore this shirt. This is my fetish. And so what I'm storing as a type of mental power or mental influence is to store this information. The associations that you've been hearing here today are stored up in this one symbol. And I'm using it as a way to fill in for the responsibility that's missing in this world. So I'm reflecting that right into your subconscious, everyone's subconscious who watches this, who watches me while I'm, this is my symbol pattern, my image, my token, my talisman. This is what's uh, this is what's filling in for what's missing. Responsibility is what's missing in this world from each and every one of us, for the most part. Okay, there are a few people who are responsible, in their on their path to truth, but very few. So I think it's really important to remember that this symbol is what acts as a inspiration to the eye, to the oculus of other, as a way to fill their oculus with light, to fill their heart with light. Now, this man, Carl Jung, I mean, his work on shadow work is so well done, and I haven't studied everything about his work, but I really appreciate what he talks about when it comes to the conscious, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. And so, if you can just hold this model in your mind while I go through these quotes from Carl, it can really make a lot more sense of what you've been hearing today, especially if you're a studier of his work. And so he says there is no linear evolution. There is only a circumambulation of the self. Well, yeah, we don't just beamline to the truth. It's not linear. We spiral, we unfold ourselves. We unfold the self as we go through life, right? As we learn, as we develop. And so he says uniform development exists at most at the beginning. Later, everything points towards the center. Well, the circle is the uniform development, and that means that you are uniform to what society molds you to be, which is most people. But eventually, we have to find our way, find our North Star, find our way back home, find our center, which is the pole, which is the point. So we make a choice to leave what is uniform into what is, true alignment in nature. So one of the most famous quotes by Carl is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Well, this model shows that perfectly, because the truth is we descend from the conscious down into the personal unconscious, down into the collective deep unconscious. And then we do the shadow work in the unconscious, the collective unconscious, and then we bring that back into the personal unconscious and become conscious. We bring that up to make the unconscious conscious. So it's about doing the shadow work to be able to truly be conscious in this world. So brilliance from this philosopher, Carl Jung. Now, the great work. What is the great work? Well, a very simple way to explain the great work is it is the ultimate personal goal to end the ignorance and apathy that ultimately holds man back from freedom. So symbolically, we start in ignorance, in the circle, in darkness, and we go on a spire ritual, a spiritual journey upward towards the center, raising the pole, and we achieve freedom internally. We all have the ability to achieve internal freedom from our ignorance and apathy. However, that's not the physical freedom. The true great work truly begins at that point where we have developed ourselves enough and have become sharp enough to where now we can spread inspiration out to ignite the hearts and minds abroad. And so I'm really hoping that I did inspire you today. And the cone now refolds into the pure form of the circled dot. And with that, I just ask, pay attention to the center, pay attention to the middle, and just keep aiming for truth and freedom. Thank you.